Welcome to the next video. In the previous, I explained how John Dee encoded Shakespeare's sonnets with several messages, including three, one on the cover, in the dedication, and in the verse, where his initial, a letter D, is paired with alpha and omega and shows a rose cross rising up from the number 174T and the initials 2T. We're not exactly sure the meaning of 2T, but in his videos, Alexander Waugh explains how 1740 is a number identified with Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, and who we believe wrote under the pseudonym William Shakespeare. Another term identified with Edward de Vere is the fourth T, which I think started here after John Rolette discovered a message in the dedication that reads, "These sonnets all by Ever," which is a short form of Edward Vere, the fourth T. In this video, I'm going to show a different series of messages encoded by D, 7 this time, and how they create a pattern which may reveal the meaning of the fourth T. To do this, I'll have to return to the very first code in the works of William Shakespeare that I ever found, and it can only be solved with the William Astley edition of the Sonnets and not with the John Wright edition, which is missing specific printing marks critical to finding the code. I've shown this code in other videos, but realized that a part of it's different than what I'd previously thought and was able to figure out something else about it. If you've been following these videos, you'll have seen some of this before, but there's information that's been updated and some new things added, and everything needs to be seen to understand what I mean about a pattern possibly revealing the meaning of the fourth T. And it all begins here. In his videos, after showing Alan Green's discovery of hidden geometries on the cover of the Sonnets, Alexander Waugh explains how a Chi symbol can be drawn where the X or Chi points to the letters by G, meaning God, and de Vere. Later, I realized that the line in the middle, the rho in Chi, is pointing to another name. There are the letters PT, which in Greek is RT or rho tau, and just to the left, the letters OR. The word or, from the Latin aurum, means gold. A T is a cross, and the Greek letters rho tau are initials for Rosy Cross, or rho tau stands for Gold Rosy Cross. It's believed by some that the secret society, the Brotherhood of the Golden and Rosy Cross, first met in London in 1570, which was 44 years before the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross made themselves known in Germany. Altogether, the lines of the Chi symbol point to letters spelling G or rho tau de Vere, the message being that the sonnets are by God, the Gold and Rosy Cross, and Edward de Vere. It's a message in three parts, and we find it on the cover 3 times. The second and third messages are found in the byline, which Waugh explains is an anagram. The letter G and the second letter T initial are in the same swash font, and together GT is a short form for God. Waugh also explains the connection of the letter T to the word ox, and how the first letter T initial resembles the head of an ox with its horns bent downwards. Waugh then shows how the byline is an anagram spelling by GT and T Ford Earl, meaning by God and Oxford Earl. Years ago, when he made the video covering the byline, it wasn't known that the Gold and Rosy Cross was a part of the message, so I'm going to point it out to you now. For a time I thought by God and Oxford Earl was a combination of 7 words and abbreviations comprised of 17 letters and 3 periods or dots, and that these numbers, 7, 17, and 3, were the gematria equivalents of the letters GRC for Gold Rosy Cross. This is incorrect because all the other messages I found use the letter T for cross and not the letter C, and I realized that for the message to be correct, it has to have the initials GRT. The initials only took a moment to find because they're hiding in plain sight within these letters in the middle. Notice when GT for God and T Ford for Oxford are spelled, the periods aren't used, and that's because these letters are also going to serve as abbreviations. Also, something to keep in mind is, with some codes, the shapes of the letters are significant. We just saw how this is a letter T and also used for ox. Its shape allows it to be read in more than one way. With that in mind, looking closer at the capital letter G, we see it's also in the shape of a lowercase g. Because of its shape, it's more than one letter. Now take a look at this character, which John Dee talks about in Monas Hieroglyphica. It's a Roman numeral 5, a Latin letter U, and when it's turned or rotated, it's a letter L. We're going to do something similar here. If the letters are rotated, not clockwise, but flipped or reversed, which can be seen by holding the page up to a light, they appear as a Greek letter R and a T. These three letters, which are grouped together and are the only abbreviations on the byline, are printed in a way so they can also be read as a lowercase g and a Greek RT. Again, GRT are the initials we're looking for. Understand that we're not using these letters twice. As a capital G, it's used to spell GT for God, but it's also a lowercase g used as an abbreviation for gold. As a lowercase g, it's a different letter. The same with the two T's. Reversed, they're also a Greek RT, abbreviations for Rosy Cross. Using the shapes of the letters, like the shape of the letter T for ox, and what I just explained about the initials, when everything is worked out, we get the message, by God, the abbreviation GRT, and Oxford Earl, which is the second example of God, Gold Rosy Cross, and de Vere. I found the third example by having the letters of the byline spell T, G-L'd, Rosy T, B, and R. The letter T is a cross, and for Christians a cross is a representation of God. The word L'd means old, so G-L'd spells gold. The letters Rosy T stand for Rosy Cross. The S in Rosy, that is an F in the byline, is the same character that's sometimes used for both S and F, and I'm not referring to the medial or long S, which looks almost identical to a lowercase f. I'm referring to when printers would use the exact same character for S and F, like with the word glasses in Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis, shown here. The last word uses the letters B and R. In Italian, andare means go, which is pronounced ir in Spanish, spelled I-R. Also in Spanish, B and V are pronounced the same. So if you translate the letters B and dare into Spanish, you get B-I-R, pronounced vir. Altogether, the byline is an anagram for God, Gold Rosy Cross, Vir. That's 3 times we get this 3-part message on the cover of the Sonnets, and it all starts with the Chi-Rho symbol. Following the cover is the dedication, which is where all of this is eventually leading. But before we get there, we have to go to the verse. Starting with Sonnet 9, a few of the sonnet numbers are printed with periods or dots. On the same page with Sonnet 9, the catchword is the number for Sonnet 10, and it also has a dot. But on the next page, the number 10 for the actual sonnet is missing the dot, and I'll explain why later. Turn the page, and the catchword or has a dot printed beneath it. This is one of a few dots that only appear in the William Astley edition of the Sonnets. Turn the page again, and there's a dot printed beneath the number for Sonnet 18. The next time we find a dot by a sonnet number is many pages away by Sonnet 122, and this is where the codes in the verse begin. The first uses Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, what John Dee refers to as the primary alphabets of the 3 languages, and it's designed to be read right to left. Starting here, similar to the cover, we find 3 messages, each in 3 parts, about God and the Golden and Rosy Cross, but instead of Edward de Vere, the 3rd part of the message is about light. Alright, looking at the sonnet numbers and catchword or with dots, we have 9, 10, or 18, and 122. At the center of the code is the word or, which has more than one meaning and is used with the numbers 9 and 10 on its left, 18 and 122 on its right, and by itself. To solve the code, we apply geometria, where numbers are equal to letters. With the Shakespeare codes, I use the 23-letter Latin alphabet, which is the alphabet John Dee is referring to in Monas Hieroglyphica when he says that X is the 21st letter. I think anyone using the 24-letter Latin alphabet to solve codes in Shakespeare's sonnets will eventually run into problems. Something else is, as we figure out the letters these sonnet numbers are equal to, keep in mind that printers of the day use the same character for the number 1 and the letter I. Here's where we start. Notice how Sonnet 122 begins with 2 letter T's. This is the only place in the sonnets where this happens, and it's not a printing mistake, and the letters do not stand for Thomas Thorpe. The message is designed to be read right to left, and like with the 2 T initials on the cover, the letters are meant to be reversed, which can also be seen when the page is held up to a light. When the 2 T's at the beginning of Sonnet 122 are reversed, they're a T or tau and the shape of a Greek gamma or G. Following these letters are the sonnet numbers 122, 18, and the catchword or. Please keep in mind that we're always reading right to left, which is why the arrow is there. Reading the number 122 right to left would make it 221, and 18 right to left would be 81. As you can see, there are no gematria equivalents for 221 or 81, and years ago it was a eureka moment when I figured out what's going on. Like I mentioned earlier, printers of the day use the same character for both 1 and the letter I. Instead of 221, it's meant to be read as 22I, and 81 is 8I. Reading right to left and applying Latin alphabet gematria, 22 is equal to the letter Y, followed by I, and 8 is equal to the letter H, followed by I. Recall at the beginning of the code that the 2 T's are reversed, making the Greek letters TG. It's the same with the letters at the end of the code with the catchword or. Reversed, it spells RO. Now read everything like it's Hebrew. Starting from the right and reading left, it spells GTYIHIOR. GT stands for God, and the remaining letters spell Yihi-or. And I can't tell you how absolutely amazed I was when I read that in Hebrew, Yihi-or means Fiat Lux, or let there be light, which are God's first spoken words from Genesis. Like with the cover, God is the first part of the message, and here the second part is let there be light. The third part begins with the catchword or. Again, it's used with the numbers on its left, on its right, and by itself. We just saw that in Hebrew, or means light, as in Yihi-or. But earlier on the cover with the letters or rho tau, we saw that or also means gold. The catchword is then read one more time with the numbers 10 and 9 on its left. For a while I thought these numbers stood for the letters K and I spelling key, and if you read them with the letters of the catchword right to left, it spelled rho key, which are the Greek letters RX, what I thought were initials for Rosy Cross. I eventually realized this is wrong because, just like on the cover, with each example of these codes, a T has to be used for the word cross. And here's how we find it. I showed earlier how the number for Sonnet 9 has a dot, but instead of the number for Sonnet 10 having one, the catchword for Sonnet 10 has it. Why was the dot printed next to the catchword instead of the actual sonnet number? The reason is simple. The 2 numbers with dots are printed together on the same page to serve as a hint that they're meant to be added together. 9 and 10 is 19, and 19 is equal to the letter T. The letters spelling or have meant light, gold, and are used a third time, read right to left, spelling RO, followed by the numbers 10 and 9, which add to 19, equivalent to the letter T. This spells rho T or rho tau. Altogether, here's the third part of the code. Reading right to left, starting with the catchword or, which means gold, then reading the letters of the catchword right to left with the sonnet numbers on its left, it spells rho tau. Just like on the cover, or rho tau stands for Gold Rosy Cross. This is a message about light, and starting with the letters GT at the beginning of Sonnet 122, which can be seen when the page is held up to a light, and reading right to left, it spells GT Yihi-or rho T, which translates to God, let there be light, gold rosy cross. Like with the cover, this message is found in the verse of the sonnets 3 times. In Monos Hieroglyphica, John D. mentions the Cabalistic methods of gematria, notarikon, and zuruf, and each of these methods are used in the sonnets. We've already applied gematria, where numbers are equal to letters. Next we're going to use notarikon, which is where we take the first letters from sentences and create a word. If we take the first letters of the sonnets with dots, 9, 10, 18, 122, and the catchword or, they spell IFORST. We then apply the third method D mentions called zuruf, which is used to create anagrams. These letters are an anagram of FORTIS, forties, and this word is magic. You can write out 4 T's as 4-letter T's, but that's not an anagram of FORTIS. The incredible thing is that the word 4 T's is an anagram of everything else. It's an anagram of first O. First means alpha, and O for omega means last. Alpha and omega, or first and last, is another name for God. It spells F Rosy T, which is a short form of the Latin Fratres Rosy Crucis, meaning Brothers of the Rosy Cross. It spells FSTORI. FS is the French abbreviation for the plural of frère, meaning brothers. T stands for cross or croix. Also in French, the word or means gold from the Latin aurum. ORI is a spelling of the Latin word auri, AURI, meaning of gold or golden. Since this is French, I think the proper syntax would be FSTORI, standing for Frère Croix Ori, meaning Brothers of the Golden Cross. Lastly, 4 T's is an anagram of sit or F. In Hebrew, or means light, and in Latin, light is lux. The expression sit lux et lux fuit means let there be light and there was light. Sit or F is an abbreviation of that expression where or, the Hebrew word for light, is used for lux. Instead of sit lux F, it's sit or F. I think it's extraordinary how this one word, taken from the first letters of the sonnets and catchword or, printed with dots, is an anagram for God, the Brothers of the Golden and Rosy Cross, and let there be light. We found this message twice now using dots that have been dismissed as printing mistakes, and the third message is found on the only other page that has them. Like with the catchword or, the dots are found only in the William Astley edition of the Sonnets. Going through the pages right to left, there's a dot beneath the word eclipses in Sonnet 60. Turn the page right to left, and reading upwards, the last line has a dot which shouldn't be there, and towards the top of the page there's a dot above the word times. Alright, like with all the other codes, God is the first part of the message. On the last line of the page are the words, Nativity once in the main of light. The stanza is meant to continue, but it's interrupted by a period which is printed larger than any other on the page. The period should be a comma, but now it makes the line a complete sentence, and Nativity once in the main of light can be read as a description of the birth of Jesus Christ. Jesus is believed to have been crucified and resurrected at the age of 33, and it's for this reason that the number 33 is often associated with him. If you look at the top of the page, the word God appears for the first time in the sonnets. In between this first line, which has the word God, and the last line describing the nativity of Jesus, there are 33 lines. Whether or not that's a hint, the period or dot that shouldn't be there is, and indicates that the line, Nativity once in the main of light, is representing God, the first part of the message. With the second part, there's definitely a hint. In the sonnet above, when Shakespeare writes, "Oh, that record could with a backward look," he's talking about looking back through time. Further up the page, the word times appears with a dot printed over it. Now if we look at the word times with a backward look, it would appear backwards like this, spelling S-E-M-I-T. Before I explain what this means, check out another potential clue. Notice how, reading upwards or in reverse, the decorated or beginning letters of these sonnets spell L-I-T, which is a variant of light. On the other side of the page, the word eclipses is printed with a dot beneath it, and if you hold the page up to a light, the dots beneath eclipses and above times appear next to each other, like a sun and moon just before an eclipse. I don't know if that was intentional or if it's supposed to mean something, but it was while holding the page up to a light when I realized that the word times would be spelled backwards. Whether it's found by holding the page up to a light, or if we get the hint from Shakespeare himself in the sonnet, we're meant to look at time, or in this case times, with a backward look. And here's what it spells. Notice how the dot is printed above and in between the S and E. If the dot is lowered, it appears right before the E, blocking out and separating the S from the rest of the word. The dot serves as an abbreviation, and following it, the word being spelled here is E-M-I-T, emit, an abbreviation of emittere, Latin meaning to send out or to send forth. So reading the dots on this side of the page, we have the sentence, Nativity once in the main of light, meaning Jesus or God. There's emit, meaning to send forth. And if you look next to the dot in the same sentence describing Jesus, it's printed right next to the word light. This dot, which again should be a comma and is printed larger than any other period on the page, accomplishes two things. It creates a sentence describing God, and also provides the message with the word light. God emit light is another way of saying God send forth light, or God let there be light. The third part of the message is found with the third dot. Turn the page where the dot is printed beneath eclipses, and we see that there are 4 letters printed around it. The letters P, S, T, and G. A Latin letter P looks identical to a Greek R or rho. Reading right to left, the letters are SG, rho, tau. Sometimes Rosicrucians use the word society instead of brotherhood, and these are initials for the Society of the Golden and Rosy Cross. Altogether, the dots point to God, let there be light, and Gold Rosy Cross. That's 3 times we found this message in the verse, and here's where everything leads. On the cover of the sonnets, we're given the message by God, Gold Rosy Cross, and Edward de Vere 3 times. And within the verse of the sonnets, 3 times the message is God, let there be light, Gold Rosy Cross. That leaves the dedication, the section in between the cover and the verse. It's in the dedication where there's a message about Edward de Vere being referred to as the 4th T. The dedication is printed in 3 inverted triangles of 6, 2, and 4 lines, 6, 2, 4 being the number of letters in the name Edward de Vere, and the date he is said to have died. The word ever is a short form of the name Edward Vere, and John Rolette discovered that if you count every 6th, 2nd, and 4th word, you get the message, these sonnets all by Ever, the 4th T. Now I'm going to show you something else that's here. Just like on the cover and in the verse at the beginning of Sonnet 122, the dedication is printed with 2 T initials. Looking closer at the 2 T's, you can see they've been altered. The cross arm of the T on the left has been shortened and bent downward, making it resemble a lowercase r. The cross arm of the T on the right has also been shortened, but it doesn't bend downward. It just sticks out, making the character resemble a Greek letter G or gamma. Pause the screen if you have to confirm it, but it's clear that these alterations make the letters a lowercase r and a Greek G. And of course, there are also 2 T's. So why were the letters altered? I've explained earlier how the letter T can stand for God and that it's also a cross. So these letters are a T for God, a Greek gamma or G for gold, a lowercase r for rosy, and a T for cross. God, gold, rosy cross. The thing is, the messages on the cover and in the verse are in three parts. God, gold, rosy cross, de Vere, and God, let there be light, gold, rosy cross. With the dedication initials, we have God and gold, rosy cross, so where's the third part of the message? It's right in front of us. When you realize these letters are abbreviations for God and gold, rosy cross, you see that they're also 4 T's or 40. And with de Vere's Shakespeare codes, 4T, 40, and 4th T are interchangeable. For example, in the last video, the three messages use 17 4T, 17 4th T, and 17 40. Now here's the thing. The message God, gold, rosy cross, and 4T or 4th T only appears in the dedication this one time. It doesn't appear 3 times like with the cover and the verse. So why is it only here once? Here's what I'm thinking. Notice how the messages are divided up. There are 3 on the cover, God, gold, rosy cross, and Edward de Vere, and they're followed by the dedication where there's one message, God, gold, rosy cross, and 4th T. Then, in the verse, beginning with Sonnet 122 and going through the pages right to left, 3 times we get the messages about God, gold, rosy cross, and let there be light, which is followed by the dedication, where again we get the one example of God, gold, rosy cross, and 4th T. The messages on the cover and in the dedication share the part about God and the gold, rosy cross, but the difference is Edward de Vere's name, which is 3 times on the cover, and the 4th T, which is 1 time in the dedication. The verse and dedication share the part about God and the golden rosy cross, but the difference is that let there be light is 3 times in the verse, and 4th T is 1 time in the dedication. Are you seeing the pattern of 3 and 1? 3 and 1 is a Hermetic concept that Alexander Woz talked about in his videos, where there's the Trinity, which is God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or the 3, and a 4th part known as the 1, which is God's creation, man. Using a pattern of 3 and 1, I think we're being told that Edward de Vere is the 4th T. Then through another pattern of 3 and 1, that the 4th T results from God's expression, let there be light, meaning that the 4th T is someone who is of light. If man is the 4th part representing the 1 in the Hermetic concept of the 3 and 1, then the pattern suggests that the 4th T is a man of light, in this case Edward de Vere, who contemporaries refer to as Phoebus or Apollo, the Greek god of light. To refer to Edward de Vere as the 4th T, it was obviously a title of some kind, and for these gold and Rosicrucians, it may have been given to someone believed to be a source of light. Now, in the previous video, I showed 3 messages, and in this video 7 for a total of 10. For Pythagoreans like John Dee, the number 10 was symbolic of completeness. That's not to say there are no more codes in the sonnets, because there are, but the 10 that I went over in these last couple videos all have a connection to the Chi-Rho symbol on the cover, and I think that's all of them. Regarding what I just showed, the different fonts of the byline allow for the letters to be read in more than one way, and the cross arms of the 2 T initials on the dedication page have definitely been altered to resemble a Greek gamma and a lowercase r. In the verse, all of the dots are part of a message about God, light, and the golden rosy cross, and there's absolutely no way that happens by chance. These are legitimate codes and should be read the way I explained them, but you can decide for yourself if they reveal Edward de Vere to be the 4th T, and the 4th T, a man of light. That's all for now, but I have more to share and will post it when I can. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up button. As always, thanks to Alexander Waugh and to you for watching.